Hello and welcome to Auto Shenanigans. How the devil are you? Have you had a good week? My name is John. Thank you very much for joining me for another exciting Great British Road Journey. Today I've come to the county of Westmorland, which doesn't really exist anymore because, well, it's complicated. It's now part of Cumbria, a large county that's made up of the said Westmorland, another historic county known as Cumberland, and there were also parts of Lancashire involved as well, but whatever, everybody just calls it the Lake District, and I look forward to a journey from Kirkby Lonsdale to Ambleside. As always, to help navigate our way around, we'll be using my 1923 Michelin guidebook, period-correct maps, and Kirkby Lonsdale seems to be a bit of a nothing place. Because in the days of my guidebook, there were around 1,400 residents. Today, 1,900. So what have you been doing for the last 100 years? Nothing, that's what. My guidebook mentions that there's a church here, because of course there is, and nearby is Easgill's Caverns, interestingly the longest series of caves in the country, but I'm not going down there. Which leaves us with a bridge, which my guidebook notes as having fine views. Not just views, fine views. Yeah, okay. The bridge is known as Devil's Bridge because of some made-up nonsense, but the structure dates back to 1370, and until 1932 it was used as the main access road in and out of Kirkby Lonsdale, but its narrow width of 3.7 metres was deemed unsuitable for modern traffic, so a replacement bridge was built a short distance away, which now carries the A65 over the River Lune. There isn't much more to say about Kirkby Lonsdale, but a short distance away in a tiny village called Barbon is a field with some sheep in it. However, we notice that there's an access road running through it, and on some of the corners there are barriers and what appear to be rumble strips. It's almost as if it were a racetrack of sorts. And that's what it is. On a handful of days throughout the year, this sheepfield and access road becomes Barbon Hill Climb, the shortest hill climb course in the country at 675 metres that was set up in the early 1950s. Like all good hill climb courses, it was essentially the driveway and entrance to a country estate or a large manor house, until one day someone with far too much time and money said, "You know what, chaps, we could be racing our motor vehicles on this here driveway," and the Barbon Hill Climb was born. The current course record is set at 20.08 seconds, but if you think you can do better, why not come down and give it a go? Let me know how you get on. It's a quiet drive through the countryside for us as we make our way along the B6254 to our next destination. It's certainly nice enough, or it would be if the weather wasn't shit, but there's nothing of note to point out. It's literally the same as it was 100 years ago. I don't think they got the memo about modern life here. Our next stop is the town of Kendal, best described as grey. The town isn't massive, but back in the day it was fairly busy within the cloth and shoemaking industries. But the town's largest claim to fame is perhaps Kendal mint cake. It's a sort of confectionery item, and to make it, you need sugar and flavouring. That's about it. It's said to have been created by accident in 1869 by Joseph Wiper following a mistake he made whilst boiling some sugar, and the end result was a soft cake-like sugar substance which very quickly grew in popularity due to some unique circumstances. The recipe for Kendal mint cake features a high amount of glucose, and in the early days of world exploration, Kendal mint cake was seen as something vital to have on you. When you're scaling Mount Everest and need a quick energy source, Kendal mint cake offered everything you needed in a small and lightweight package, and apparently Kendal mint cake went to the Antarctic with Ernest Shackleton on some of his expeditions. Today, Kendal mint cake is still made in Kendal. The oldest manufacturer is Quiggins, who started out in 1840 before moving into Kendal mint cake in 1880. My guidebook makes a couple of suggestions on things to look at, one of which we'll get to as we head out of Kendal, but before we do, let's take a look at Kendal Castle as per its recommendation. The castle was built in the 1300s on what's called a drumlin, which is basically a small mound formed as a result of glacial movements during the Ice Age. Perhaps unusually, the castle only lasted until the late 1400s before being abandoned and left for ruin. At the time, its owner was William Parr, the grandfather of Catherine Parr, who would go on to be wife number 6 for Henry VIII. Should we head out of Kendal now and take a look at that second recommendation? It's a cliff, known as Scout Scar or Under Barrow Scar, where my guidebook notes there's a view. Not a fine view, just a view. And even then, I think we're going to struggle today. The technical term for Scout Scar is an escarpment, a steep cliff found at the edge of a plateau or separating areas of land that are at different heights. Thanks, Google. You'll notice that the cliff is very grey, similar to that of Kendal, and that's because the rock here is limestone, which was commonly used for construction. And interestingly, the car park you'd use when visiting Scout Scar are the leftovers of an old limestone quarry. Moving on, and we'll be taking a less than direct route once again through some lovely countryside where there's nothing going on. And the reason for doing so is not only to pad out the video, it's because there's a rather interesting museum that I feel we should visit since we're in the area. I might be cheating a little bit here because in the days of my guidebook, this area counted as part of Lancashire, but let's not worry about it because I've come to the Lakeland Motor Museum that has an assortment of vehicles that were once someone's private collection before in 2010 it was turned into a museum that houses over 30,000 items, and perhaps my favourite, a 1995 Vauxhall Corsa GLS. At the other end of the scale though is a replica of Malcolm Campbell's land speed record-setting vehicle in which he set a record of 311 miles an hour in 1935. To do so, they basically took a Rolls-Royce aeroplane engine and attached some wheels. Whilst it was simple, it weighed the best part of 5 tonnes, yet despite being a chonky boy, it was a record setter. Malcolm's escapades would inspire his son Donald to undertake similar record-setting activities, and he would become the only person to set a land and water speed record in the same year. Anyway, the museum is full of stories like that and is well worth the visit, but if cars aren't your thing, then maybe consider a visit to the Lakeside and Haverthwaite Heritage Railway, situated but a short distance away, which opened in 1973, running for 3 miles between Haverthwaite and the shores of Lake Windemere. Originally, it was part of a branch line that opened in 1869 that was built to serve mainly the iron ore and coal industries, but they figured they might as well transport some passengers as well, which they did up until 1965 when the railway closed. Interestingly, they've got a steam engine known as Victor, or Engine 2996, and it used to live in Wales at a steelworks, but later on was used by the Austin Motor Company. This little engine helped to build cars, albeit shit ones. Getting back on track, because of the trains, it's funny. Never mind. We'll be heading along the A592 next, which mostly follows the shoreline of Lake Windemere, which stretches over 10 miles, making it the largest lake in England. Which is something the town of Windemere is keen to point out as it cashes in on the tourism industry. Handy hint, don't come here in the school holidays, it's an absolute nightmare. But when visiting Windemere, my guidebook suggests maybe one would like to take a look at Windemere Lake, because of course it does. There's nothing else here really, perhaps supported by the fact that the town has almost halved in size over the last 100 years. In the days of my guidebook, it was getting on for around 7,000 residents, but today it's nearer 4,000. It's probably more of a town to retire to and set up a small tea room lifestyle business. It'll see you out. The next town along is the town of Ambleside, where my guidebook suggests maybe we'd like to head out of Ambleside and visit Stockgill Force, which, according to this, has an entrance fee. It doesn't anymore, but it used to, and an interesting thing to look out for is the Victorian turnstile that's still in place, although I didn't find it. I assume it was there that you'd pay your entrance fee, but what is Stockgill Force and why would you pay to see it? You probably wouldn't, and I imagine that's why the entrance fee was scrapped. Who'd ever think about charging the public to see natural parts of the countryside? But anyway, the word force is a Viking term used to describe a waterfall, and here at Stockgill there's a picturesque sequence of waterfalls cascading down 22 metres of rock face. If one were to follow the water downstream, you'd end up in the middle of Ambleside, where the Stockgill River runs through the town via a canal system, and it's here that we find possibly the most photographed structure in the whole of Westmorland or the Lake District. It's known as Bridge House, a house on a bridge, and it's roughly 300 years old. It most likely wasn't built as a house to live in. Some sources suggest that it was a summer lodge as part of a large country estate, or maybe it was used for storage for things like apples. Your guess is as good as mine. As for why it's the most photographed building, well, it's possible that it was made famous by Lewis Pinhorn Wood, who painted the structure in the late 1800s, titling his piece The View of the Cobbler's Shop on the Bridge. However, I suspect that was just a title because there's no record of the bridge house being a shop. To end, I've come to Rydal, as recommended by my guidebook. It's mainly a country park or large area for recreation, but if we ignore all of that and take a short walk, we can find something of interest that's accessible only via some stepping stones in the water. Well, to be fair, you don't have to go in. You can see it from the outside. This is Rydal Cave, and yeah, fair enough, it's pretty impressive. It's amazing what nature can do, except it didn't, because the cave is completely man-made. What we're looking at are the leftovers of an old slate quarry or a slate mine that's been rebranded as a tourist attraction. The quarry operated between the 18th and 19th century, digging out some of the highest quality slate, which was mostly used for the roofs of buildings, which explains the signature grey colour we find in this part of the country. And there we are then, guys. That's all we've got time for this week. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, there is of course a button specifically for that. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. That'd be wicked sweet awesome. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever it is you get up to. My name's John. You've been watching Auto Shenanigans, and I'll see you guys next time for another exciting Great British Road Journey. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.